Welcome to this hybrid meeting of the Personnel Committee on Monday the 11th of March 2024. Meeting will be recorded. Please pop your phones on silent for the duration of the meeting. It's just Steve, the leader, and myself in the chamber, but pop yourselves on mute if you're online. If you have any questions, please pop up your virtual hand and Steve can put up his real hand. At this stage, under item 1, Chair's announcements, I'm just going to bring in Jane to give us an update on where we are with voting.
Oh, thank you, Chair. Just to confirm that the Cabinet members present in Personnel Committee cannot vote except for the Chair and Councillor Hale. So you are here as advisors only.
Thank you, Jane. Is everybody aware of that and happy with that? Yes? Good. Thank you. On to item 2, which is declarations of interest. We've got one in the chamber from Sheena.
Thank you, Chair. So I would like to declare interest on behalf of all officers present online and in the chamber this afternoon. So in relation to the item on the revised staff and member car parking scheme, on the basis that we have a pecuniary interest in that matter. So all officers will leave the chamber, leave the online meeting, with the exception of Democratic Services officers who have dispensation to remain in the chamber for the purposes of recording the meeting. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Sheena. Any other indications of declarations? I've got a couple of hands going up. So, Councillor Stephanie Grimshaw first, please.
Thank you. Yeah, similarly, I'm not sure how we want to approach this, but obviously as a member, we also benefit from the parking scheme.
All members have dispensation from the Standards Committee for this one, so we're allowed to remain. Sean, is yours similar or different?
No, I wanted to ask if only Democratic Services staff remain in the meeting, how are we, who are we asking questions to on the parking item?
So Sheena and her staff will leave. Then, sorry, not Sheena and her staff, Sheena and all of the staff will leave. And then we will take some questions. And then Jane and Sarah will help me with those questions. We'll compile a list. And then Sheena will be able to come back in to answer the questions.
Right. Okay. Thank you. That's helpful.
Okay. Hopefully there won't be many, but yes, we'll deal with it in that process if that's okay. Any other questions on that item? This declarations of interest number 2 it is. No. Okay. We move on to item 3, which is the minutes of the previous meeting. These are found on pages 3 to 8 of the agenda pack and are here for noting's accuracy. Are there any issues?
My laptop wouldn't boot up.
It was not off mute there. Okay, good. So are there any issues with the accuracy of the minutes? If not, can I have a proposer and a seconder, please?
Yeah, propose.
Happy to second.
Thanks, Sean, and thanks, Stephanie. Okay.
Chair, I can confirm the minutes are now approved.
Lovely. Thank you, Sarah. Okay, so we're now on to item 4, which is the Neath staff and member car parking scheme, for which officers will leave.
Chair, I can confirm that all officers have now left the chamber and online.
Thank you, Sarah. Just before we open this up and ask for if there are any questions, can you just scroll up just so I can see the hands? There is an amendment that I'd like to put forward in terms of the car parking scheme, and it'll be to include the Scarlett Avenue car park also. So when the time is right, I'll bring that up and propose that as an amendment. So we'll take questions as they come up. Councillor Sean Percy first, please.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Yeah, two questions struck me with this one. Number one, in terms of the income target that has not been achieved due to the suspension of charges, whose budget was that allocated to? That's the first question. And then the second question is how does this decision comply with our ambitions and Llwybr Newydd and the Wales Transport Strategy in the sense that we will effectively be subsidising car parking for staff and members, but not subsidising forms of sustainable transport such as bus travel.
Okay, thanks, Sean. So we'll write these down and then we'll invite Sheena in to answer the questions as a whole, if that's okay. So I'll go to Stephanie next, please. Stephanie Grimshaw.
Thank you. I brought this issue up among a few members when parking was last discussed. I do have an issue with disability not being regarded as having an impact for the same reasons as we discussed last time. Essentially, I just believe that someone who does have lived experience of being disabled or struggling to get to the office or anything like that is going to be disproportionately affected. So I would prefer that under the impact assessment that disability was ticked on yes, if possible.
Okay, thank you, Stephanie. Any other questions from any members, please? No, on that point then. So I'll ask the leader, because he's sitting closer to the door, to ask Sheena to come back in, who can then answer those questions. Thank you. Sorry, all officers want to come back in, but it's just Sheena who's coming in. Okay, thank you very much. So we've got Sheena back in the chamber with us. Jane has written down the questions, so we'll take each one in turn. We've got 3 questions, Sheena. Jane, if you ask them, and Sheena can answer them for us. Thank you.
Apologies, members, but I have written them down quickly. Right, the first question, income target not achieved. Whose budget was that allocated to?
So I understand it was to Dave Griffiths's budget. So it's the budget for the parking services.
What about comeback questions? Are members allowed comeback questions? Yes. So it'll come back to you, Sean, if you've got anything to follow up on that.
Yeah, I do. It's probably not necessarily a question for this committee in a sense, because Dave and his officers are not there. But obviously there was a significant income target for the parking service at the last budget that we've effectively passed on to residents. And I wasn't aware there was a sort of hole in the budget caused by the staff and member parking scheme that we're effectively sort of writing off today. So a little bit disappointed really that we're only finding out about this sort of £200,000 of income that has, been allocated to the budget and not achieved, because there's been significant income targets there. But obviously that's not Sheena's remit or the remit of anybody in this meeting. But I think that's something we need to pick up, because this seems a little bit disjointed, and it makes me feel quite uncomfortable actually supporting a proposal to subsidise for the current proposal to be free for staff and members, given that we've increased parking charges for the community. I couldn't support that at all.
Okay, thanks, Sean. Sheena, do you want to come back on?
Yeah, just to clarify, my understanding is that the budget decisions haven't been taken this year, that the budget readjustment took place back in 2020 when the car parking fees were originally suspended. So whether that helps or not, I don't know, but that's my understanding.
Is that okay, Sean? Do you want to come back in on that as well?
I appreciate the explanation, but I don't think it changes my my position at the moment. Diolch.
Okay, thanks, Sean. We've got your second question as well now,
Yeah.
Jane, please.
How does this doing the transport strategy, subsidising staff and members, doesn't link to the travel strategy?
Was that just
it?
Elaborate
Yes.
on that, if that's okay. Yeah, it's just in terms of looking at sustainable travel and sustainable transport and our requirements to prioritise walking, cycling and public transport. Obviously, this decision effectively subsidises car parking, but doesn't offer incentives for staff to use public transport, buses, trains, etc. So that obviously isn't really compliant with our own policies as a council or national transport policy. So I was trying to understand how we're justifying that departure from policy.
Okay, I suppose I have to be careful so that I'm not straying into trying to persuade your decision making here. I suppose what I can say is that we have other policies that encourage green travel when it comes to staff. So things like the Cycle to Work scheme, we've got the subsidised car purchasing, so encouraging staff to purchase electric and hybrid vehicles. So there are other things that we do, but in terms of whether this is going to encourage or discourage, I guess I can't comment on that because potentially I'm influencing your decision making.
It's a very odd set of circumstances we've got in front of us where you can't get the answers to your questions, Sean, which is, I guess is going to be slightly infuriating. So Sheena's given us something there. Is there anything you wanted to come back on that?
No, look, I obviously I think just on the face of it, there's obviously from my perspective a policy issue here in terms of whether this achieves our wider council objectives. Obviously, I can understand from a HR point of view, it's going to be attractive to members of staff to have free car parking, and obviously from a recruitment point of view, that's going to be attractive as well. And I know we're trying to, put measures in place to make Neath for Talbot Council an attractive place for people to work. But I think this would have been better presented as a package of measures around transport, so that we could have considered all of those things together. And I think, although I appreciate we have the Cycle to Work scheme and other schemes, what we don't have is anything on public transport, and actually the decision to make this subsidy choice against public transport is also going to impact the sorts of people that can access employment in Neath for Talbot Council as well. People who own a car are getting an incentive. People who have to use public transport to work are not getting an incentive, and I think that there's an issue there as well. So that again, that's my view. And obviously, I know Sheena is limited into what in terms of how she can respond to that. So I appreciate the difficulty there, Chair.
Okay, thanks, Shane. I'll bring Jane in at this point.
Hi, Councillor Percy. If I can help, Personnel Committee you're only looking at this from the terms and conditions of the report. That's all you've been asked to do. I understand what you're saying about the impacts on other things, but as Personnel Committee, you were just responsible for the terms and conditions of employees. So it's just that part of it is what you've been asked to look at. If that helps a little bit better.
John?
I'm not sure it does, and I'm not sure that makes me feel any more comfortable. Perhaps we need some further training on that element. Again, I'm not sure how we can not take into account, other council policies and national policy and our, well-being goals and everything else we're trying to achieve. But again, I think I've expressed my opinion and my view and where I'm coming from, and I think that's all I need to do at the minute, Chair.
Yeah, okay, get that. Thank you, Sean. The third question then, please, Jane.
This is Councillor Grimshaw, and it was in regard to the IIA. Councillor Grimshaw was concerned that disability was not included, that it was being treated disproportionate. Is that okay, Councillor Grimshaw?
Yeah, it's not necessarily in a negative way. I just think it needs acknowledging because there are specific provisions for those with blue badges and temporary mobility issues. I think it's just more of a paperwork thing that needs to be a yes rather than a no.
So Councillor Grimshaw, yes, I totally accept that, and apologies, we should have taken account of that in the IIA.
Okay, thank you. There weren't any other questions, so I'm going to ask Sheena to go back out, please. Okay, thank you very much. So, Sarah, confirm everybody's left formally.
Yes, Chair, I can confirm that Sheena's now left the room.
Okay, thank you. So for those who are you at the start of this part, I was contacted by several members of the workforce regarding Scarlett Avenue, and after having discussions with Sheena, I'm going to put a proposal forward, and my proposal will be that Scarlett Avenue car park be added to the scheme. This will enable staff at Tremor Moor to participate in the scheme. So there are no more questions at this stage. So I'm going to propose that. If anybody's happy to second it, please.
I'm happy to second, Chair. Councillor Richards.
Thank you very much, Anthony. Okay, so we're going to show of hands on the amendment, those who are for that amendment, as well as the recommendation on page. Right, sorry. Okay, so just the amendment first. Can I have a show of hands? All those who are in favour of that amendment, please. There's some non-voting members put their hands up there, isn't there? Okay, so that amendment has passed. So the full recommendation then will be that the revised staff and member car parking scheme be approved with the inclusion of the car park at Scarlett Avenue. So I will propose that. If I can have a seconder, please.
Happy to second, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Richards. Okay, and then all those. Okay, can I have a show of hands for all those who are in favour of that recommendation, please? Are there any abstentions to that recommendation, please? If you can put your hand. All those who did have their hands up, put them down. Okay, and then if there are any abstentions, please can you put your hand up, please? Yep, there are none. So that's carried. Thank you very much, Jane. Leader, can I ask you to bring in the members again, please? Sorry, before you do, Sean?
So I wish to vote against, but I didn't have an opportunity to record my vote against.
We didn't record the vote. It's not a recorded vote, Councillor Percy, but what we did, we asked
the
for the
chair didn't-
affirmative. So
Okay.
what you would be taken as against because you didn't put your hand up. But the votes are not recorded.
That's fine. Just as long as it's clear that that was my indication. Obviously, this is a the meeting itself is recorded. And the
Yes.
chair didn't call for members to raise their hands for a vote against. So I just wanted to make sure that was clear. Yeah.
That's fine. It was just that there was enough members voting in favour to carry the proposal.
Okay, thanks, Jane. So, Leader, please. We're just calling the officers in who are joining us online again, so please bear with me. Yeah, okay, so the recommendation on item 4 was approved. So we're now on to agenda item 5, which is the strategic workforce plan. And I'm going to hand you over to Sheena, please.
Thanks, Chair. So just briefly then, this is a review of year 1 of the Strategic Workforce Plan, the Future of Work Strategy, which members of this committee approved in October 2023. So the review process has considered 4 questions. So did we do what we said we would do? Did we carry out the actions we committed to in the year 1 delivery plan? Can we start to measure the impact of those actions yet? Are the priorities, the 7 workforce priorities that we defined in the Strategic Workforce Plan, still relevant? And what are the actions that we'll undertake in 24-25? So we didn't carry out the review process in isolation. We involved a range of people in reviewing the Strategic Workforce Plan. So that includes employees at all levels, our managers, senior management teams, and really importantly, our recognised trade unions. We also had input from Audit Wales as well, so we have taken account of their feedback. So in Appendix 1, you have the review of the Year 1 delivery plan. So what we have described are outputs, and where we are able to, we've started to describe the impact of those outputs. That is something that we are going to be developing more of. We have established the people analytics team within HR. We've got 4 officers who are actually training in people analytics. So they're CIPD qualified, but they're also going to have this data analytics qualification, and that will enable them to really manage our data for us. So what you should see over the next couple of years is more and more interesting data and the way we can present it. Appendix 2 is a summary of the feedback that we collated. So this was particularly to help us answer the question of whether our workforce priorities are still relevant or not. And then at Appendix 3, you have the proposed delivery plan for the next 12-month period. So in terms of the recommendations that we are making to you, bear with me just a second. One, we're recommending that you note the review of actions undertaken over the last 12 months. 2, that you approve the recommendation that the 7 strategic workforce priorities will remain relevant and fit for purpose. And 3, approve the proposed delivery plan for 24-25. And happy to take any questions. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Sheena. We have some indications already. So we've got, oh, the Chamber's got his hand up as well. The first one is Councillor Stephanie Grimshaw, please.
Diolch. I don't know whether this is too late to make this kind of suggestion, and apologies if it is. I was wondering whether, as part of the actions for the next year, we could implement the Trade Union Congress sexual harassment in the workplace toolkit.
Sheena?
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Grimshaw. That's certainly something that has been on our radar, and we have been discussing with the trade unions, and it's certainly something we could pick up in terms of our gender equality action plan. Quite when we'll be able to do it, I'll talk to officers about that, but that's certainly something that is on our radar, so we will look at doing some work around that.
Okay, thank you. Anything to come back on that, Stephanie, please?
Just if it would be possible to get an update on that when those discussions take place, if possible.
Yeah, absolutely, no problem at all. Any other questions, comments, observations? Don't see any. Okay. So I can now refer to members to the recommendation of pages 36 to 37. I'll propose if I can have a seconder, please.
Happy to second, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Richard. Members, if you do not indicate to the contrary by raising your hand, I'll assume you're in favour of the recommendation, and Sarah will confirm, please.
I see no indication to the contrary, Chair, and I can confirm the recommendation is approved.
Perhaps if the mic is on. Okay, thank you. Agenda item 6 is the carers policy, which is Amy is going to take for us, please.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon. This report is to seek members' approval for revisions to the carers policy in line with employment legislation and best practice. And I'm prepared to take any questions on this item.
Thanks, Amy. Are there any questions, comments, observations? Nope. Don't see any. It's a good one for you, Amy. Okay, so we'll now refer members to the recommendation of page 102. Can I have a proposer and a seconder, please?
Happy to propose, Chair.
Thanks, Anthony.
Happy to second, Chair.
Members, if you don't indicate to the contrary by raising your hand, I'll assume you're in favour of the recommendation, and Sarah will confirm.
I see no indication to the contrary, Chair. Confirm the recommendation is now approved.
Diolch. We're on to agenda item 7. This is the social media policy, which Amy again will take for us.
Thank you, Chair. So this report is to seek approval to revise the council's social media policy. This follows feedback from focus groups and following the implementation of the hybrid working framework. And again, I'm prepared to take any questions on this item.
Thank you, Amy. Any questions, comments, observations for Amy, please? Oh, one came up then. Councillor Anthony Richards, please. Anthony?
Great, yeah, diolch yn fawr, Cadeirydd. Thank you, Amy, as well for the report. It's not really a question, but just to ensure that I'm reading it correctly, there is no explicit mention of political use of social media, but am I right in sort of assuming that, you know, you have emphasised the responsible and professional behaviour, you know, compliance with the policy, etc. And of course, that would be in line with staff using it for political reasons as well.
Thanks, Anthony. I think Sheena's going to come back in on that one.
Thank you.
Thanks, Richard. So we obviously issue guidance to employees in terms of political restrictions, and guidance has just been issued to all staff in relation to the upcoming elections. So that sits alongside this guidance. They complement each other.
Okay, thanks, Sheena. Any to come back on that, Anthony?
No, great. Diolch yn fawr. Thank you.
Cool. Okay, no others. So I refer members now to the recommendations on page 123. Please could I have a proposer and a seconder?
Happy to propose, Chair.
Thanks, Anthony.
Happy to second, Chair.
Thank you, James. Members, if you don't indicate to the contrary by raising your hand, I'll assume you're in favour of the recommendation, and Sarah will confirm.
I see no indication to the contrary, Chair. I can confirm the recommendation is approved.
Diolch. We're on to agenda item 8, which is our pay policy statement for 2024-2025. Sheena, please.
Chair. So members may recall that this is a statutory requirement that the council reviews its pay policy statement on an annual basis and publishes it on its outward-facing internet by the end of March each year. So the statement itself will be going to council for approval next week on the 20th of March. It's before members today for information as Personnel Committee. The pay policy statement itself doesn't recommend any decisions in relation to pay. It simply summarises the council's position in relation to pay and decisions that have been taken previously. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Sheena. Are there any questions, comments, observations on this item, please? Don't see any. Well, as Sheena has mentioned, the report is here for information. Therefore, we will note the report. And we move on to agenda item 9, which is the Workforce Information Report Q3. And again, over to you, Sheena, please.
Thanks, Chair. So this is the regular information report that's brought before you, and this is for Q3 of 23-24. One notable item is the fact that sickness has slightly decreased. It is a slight decrease, but any decrease is good news in my book. So I am highlighting it. The eagle-eyed amongst you may note that some of the data in this report is slightly different to that's in the appendices for the Strategic Workforce Plan. I just want to point out that's because the time periods are slightly different. So this is dealing with Q3, so up to December. Some of the data in the Strategic Workforce Plan takes you to the end of January. So if anyone is querying why some of the data looks slightly different, that's the reason why. So anytime that you look at workforce information, you have to bear in mind that it is just a snapshot in time, and that data is constantly changing and fluctuating as numbers in our workforce change and as new people come in and people leave. So that's the reason why. I'm happy to take any questions. Thanks, Chair.
Thanks, Sheena. Yes, we've got some indication. So we've got Councillor Stephanie Grimshaw first, please.
Thank you. I was just wondering, I was having a look at the top 10 reasons for short-term and long-term sickness, and a lot of it seems kind of mental health related. I was wondering whether there was any kind of proactive conversations with staff on kind of avoidance of burnout and making sure that, you know, they only work their kind of contracted hours, just things like that, that I know you'll already be aware of. But I was just wondering what kind of conversations take place to try and limit and mitigate burnout.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Grimshaw. So mental health is an area that we invest a lot of time and effort in. So we work with Time to Change Wales. We have an action plan. So Diana's on the call, and it is Diane who particularly works with Time to Change Wales and puts together the action plan and make sure that the actions are pushing ahead. I know that in other organisations they will sign up to Time to Change Wales, but they don't necessarily really commit to the action plan. So we have done that here. We have a very active network of mental health champions. So those are people across our workforce who have been trained by Time to Change Wales and who will tell their story in relation to mental health. Now, that's either a very personal story about their own mental health, or it could be the mental health of somebody within their family or a loved one that they've supported. And that's a very powerful thing to do, so to tell their story. But they also help with reducing stigma, with signposting. We recently introduced an employee assistance programme. So that launched at the end of January. I was talking to our occupational health advisor this morning, who has told me that she's already referred 40 employees through to that scheme in the first 5 weeks. Employees don't have to be referred, so they can contact the employee assistance programme anytime they want to. It's a 24/7 offer, and there's access to a wide range of health support. So it's not just mental health, it's physical health as well. The hybrid working framework also has built into it advice and support for line managers in terms of line managing in a hybrid world, so where they may have employees in different locations. So they might be out in the community, they might be in workplaces, or they might be working at home, and that requires a different sort of line management. So there is guidance specifically for line managers in some of the signs to look out for where an employee's mental health may be deteriorating, and where that line manager perhaps needs to intervene a bit. So that's a summary, and it's a bit off the top of my head in terms of the wide range of mental health support. If there's anything else, Councillor Grimshaw, just let me know.
Thanks, Sheena. Did you want to go back anything on there, Councillor Grimshaw?
No, that's fine. Sorry, I was hoping that by the shake of my head, you know what I was saying, but yeah, that's fine. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, so next indication is Councillor Sean Percy, please.
No, just a brief comment from me rather than a question. Just glad to see that we're changing our approach in terms of the data gathering for leavers, and we'll be removing the option for people to not give a reason. It was quite welcome to see that, and I'm hoping we'll get some more meaningful data then going forward. So just wanted to show my appreciation for that, because I do like a bit of robust data. Diolch.
Thank you, Sean. Any other indications, comments, observations on this agenda item? Sean puts his hand down. We'll take that as a no. Or do you want to come? Oh, there we are. Sorry. Thank you very much, Sean. Okay. As previously mentioned, this report is here for information as well, so we will note that report. Okay. Then we've got agenda item 10, which is urgent items, and there aren't any today, but I will, just for everybody to be aware, it's Amy Hutchins who's in the chamber here today with us. It's her birthday, so I'm sure you'd all be happy if I wished her a happy birthday on our behalf. We won't sing today, but happy birthday, Amy. Hope you have a lovely rest of the day. And for everybody else, that's the end of our meeting. Thank you very much, and thanks for attending. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks a lot.